Welcome back to my channel. And this video was actually inspired by one of you guys. You left me a comment in my last video. Thank you so much for asking this question, because I used to be somebody that asked this question all the time. I used to watch other people on YouTube or TikTok when they would talk about listen to God, listen to his voice. He will tell you what to do. He'll tell you how to move. And I never really understood. I'm like, how? How do you listen to God's voice? How do you hear God's voice? Like, what does that even sound like? What does it look like? Like, I want to hear it. I want to be able to recognize it when it comes, but I don't know how. And nobody quite explained it to me until later on, when I started really deepening my faith in God and watching different types of videos that certain things would stand out to me. And I started seeing it in my reality. That got me to understand, this is how you hear God's voice. This is how you know whether it's God speaking to you, or your thoughts speaking to you, or the enemy trying to, do his thing. I'm going to get right into the video. If you catch me looking down, it's because I have my notes. I've written a few things down that I want to share with you guys and make sure that I get it all across to you. Okay, so God's voice equals peace, joy, happiness, and lighting up within. Sometimes it's not always like this, because sometimes, depending on what he's telling you, you may not feel completely at peace, but most of the time, when God is speaking to you, you feel at peace. You feel light, like your entire body lights up, your heart will light up, your mind will light up. You just feel this overwhelming sense of calmness, at peace, and just lighting up within. That's what God's voice feels like. To me, at least, that's what it feels like. I feel reassured when I hear his voice. The second part is your voice can be filled with negative self-talk, self-sabotage, and sometimes selfishness. So I'm sure we all do this. I don't know a single person on this earth that doesn't actually have conversations with themselves. I hope you do, because you get some really insightful things about yourself when you are having a conversation with yourself. But in your mind, your voice, depending on how far along in your inner work journey that you are, typically your voice tends to come out with limiting beliefs. So for example, let's say God tells you this super exciting thing that you should do. Maybe God is like, oh, I'm going to bless you with a car. I'm going to bless you with a car. He doesn't give you a timeline or whatever, but he just says, I'm going to bless you with a car. But then your limiting beliefs come up and say, how are we going to afford this car? We have to pay insurance on this car. We have to put gas in this car. Like, do we even deserve this car? Like, why would I want to get like such a fancy car? That's your voice and your own limiting beliefs getting in the way of a blessing that God could potentially want to give you. So I'm trying to get you to see the difference between how God will present his voice. It's very peaceful. The idea is very exciting. You get super excited. You're lighting up within your heart, your soul. Like, you're like, oh my God, I can envision myself in this car. I'm so excited. I totally deserve it. But then your inner voice will come through and say, nah, -1, -2, -3. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I made some sound effects. Okay. So that is, hopefully, I hope that that's clear when you're deciphering the difference between God's voice and your voice, depending on how far along your inner work journey you've come. Typically, when we are receiving something from God, we have negative self-talk within. We have limiting beliefs that come up because there is some part of us that is not healed. So we self-sabotage because our old self is uncomfortable with change and uncomfortable with things that aren't normal or the same to it. Okay, so this part is really, really interesting. When God speaks to you, it is in a whisper. God doesn't do things like very loud or like shout at you. maybe in a different aspect, he may shout at you, but when he's speaking to you, it's a whisper. It's so quiet that sometimes you can miss it. It makes you feel at peace, and it feels good. It feels right. When that whisper comes, you just feel like you know it in your heart that this is the right thing. This is the right feeling. Imagine, like, let me give you an example. Let's say you have two choices between, I don't know, cliff diving. Let's say cliff diving. Let's say you have a choice between going cliff diving or not going cliff diving. When you get to the edge, okay, maybe if you're an adrenaline junkie, this might not apply to you. I personally am not. So when you're going to go cliff diving, you're going to stand at the edge and say, is this the right thing to do? You are going to know in your body, in your mind and soul that if this is not for you, you'll know that it's not for you. If it is for you, you'll know that it is for you, because like the urge to jump will just come and you'll jump. But if there's some part of you that something just doesn't feel right, something just doesn't sit right in my body, you'll know that this is not for you. You have to listen to those nudges that you feel in your body. So the enemy, or you, sometimes will try to drown out that whisper, and it sounds like limiting beliefs, and it sounds like self-sabotage, and it sounds like self-doubt. So when God talks to you and gives you this desire in your mind that says, you know, you're going to be an amazing speaker one day, and then all of a sudden those limiting beliefs and self-doubt, but like, I can't speak in public, I can't talk to people, my words all are twisted up, those self-doubts and those limiting beliefs will come up to drown out this beautiful gift and this beautiful blessing that God is trying to give you. So you'll know. Moving on. Typically, here's another thing. This part was actually really interesting. And when I was writing this part and another part, when I was writing this part, I felt like goosebumps like on the side of my face, and it felt so strong. And normally I know that I'm on the right path. I can feel it right now. I'm on the right path, or I'm doing the right thing when I feel these like confirmations on my body and in my spirit. So typically when it's the voice of the enemy and it's not God's voice, it makes you feel stressed out. It makes you feel you feel anxious. You get the anxiety feeling. You feel this ickiness at the pit of your stomach. You don't feel rested in your body. You just don't feel like settled. There's something that doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel good. So that's how you know the difference, because when God speaks, it's very peaceful. You feel very calm, very relaxed, very just happy. There's a knowing of good. Yes, I know this is God, because you're very at peace. But when it's not, you have this like, you're uneasy, you're stressed out, you're like heightened, you feel like you got to rush to do things. If you're rushing to do things, that's also another indication that that's not from God, in my personal experience. Like if something is being rushed and oh my gosh, I'm going to give you the most perfect example. This example, I lived in another country for like a year and a half, and my friend and I, one of my best friends and I, we went for a bike ride, and she had invited this other person. I had never met them before. And we went for a bike ride, and we were going to go to like a beach area, but you needed to go up like a few hills to get there. And when we were going up the hill, my friend decided to leave. She was like, yeah, I don't want to do the hills, whatever, I'll leave and I'll see you guys when we get back, or something like that. And when we went up the hill, I was just talking to this person that I just met. I was super excited about a project that was going on in my life, and he was potentially interested. So I was just talking to him. So I didn't want to leave mid-conversation, especially since I was talking about the project that I was so passionate about at that time. And I don't like roller coasters. I don't like living on the edge. Like, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I don't need to feel like I'm on the edge in order to feel like I'm alive. I'm not that type of person. Little things make me feel alive. And so once our talk was done, I remember he was like, oh my God, I gotta go. Like, there was all of a sudden this like urgency and rush. And something in me was like, why am I rushing? Like, why am I hurrying? In my soul, I just didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. And I remember he was rushing and he took off, like got on the bike and sped down like the hills. And I don't do that. Like that's not me. And typically I would have just walked down, but because I felt this like sense of urgency and out of nowhere, and I just didn't feel right, I got on my bike and like rushed it down the hill. And because I'm somebody, like I pass out on roller coasters. So going down the hill that quickly, and it was like a gear bike. It was my first time riding a gear bike like that. I would ride, what are those called? Like a cruiser bike. You got to pedal backwards to brake. Like it's nothing compared to a gear bike. And I remember I was rushing down the hill and I was so terrified. And at that moment, something in me said, you have to let go and just let Jesus take the wheel. Literally, I know it sounds so cheesy and so corny, but that is the message that I got. Let go and trust. So that's exactly what I did. And I didn't have a helmet. Guys, disclaimer, please wear a freaking helmet. I'm sorry, excuse my French. If you're gonna ride a bike, wear your helmet. I'm speaking from experience. So rushing down this hill, I get the urge of like, let go and trust God, trust Jesus. And I did. I let go of the bike. I just decided, I said, yep, this is it. If this is how I go out, then that's it. I let go and I went flying. The bike went flying. I just felt my body like tumble around and stuff. And eventually I came to a stop, and obviously I was fine. I'm sitting here telling you the story now, but it was really scary, and it was the biggest accident I ever had in my whole life. And it was not fun. It was not fun. Like I had like a fracture to prove it. I have a scar to prove it. So the reason why I'm telling you this story is I had two scenarios in those moments. I got the voice that wasn't me, that rush, that anxiety, something's happened quickly, that pit of my stomach got feeling that didn't feel right. And then that peace that I felt mid all of the craziness that was happening while I was descending this hill, enough to trust and let go and trust that I would be okay. And if I wasn't, then that was meant to be. So when God is speaking to you, you'll feel at peace. You'll feel like, if I die in this moment, I'm fine. Like I'm happy. If that's how I felt. And if it's not God's voice, you'll feel anxious. You'll feel this tightness within, and you'll know that that's not from God, because God comes calmly, gently, and in a whisper. So God also speaks to us through our intuition. This one is huge, because typically when we follow our intuition, it's always spot on. It's always spot on because God speaks through us through our intuition. So I'm going to give you some examples on how to strengthen your intuition. I think this is going to be so helpful for you in your everyday life. So I want you to pick one thing. First of all, fasting is a number one way you can strengthen your intuition, because when you're fasting, you're eliminating all of the distractions. You're helping your body take a break, relax, and get quiet, because you're not digesting, you're not doing all these things. So your body has the chance to actually hear God's voice, even when it's a whisper, because there's nothing else going on. So fasting, number one. Number two is you're going to find something, like one thing, maybe it could be maybe something that you want to eat in a day, or something like that, or any decision that you make. Maybe like you go for a walk. Every single day you go for a walk, and every single day I want you to say, okay, intuition, body, guide me. Which path should I take today? Whether it's right or left, or if you're going to turn a corner or not. Do this one thing. Pick a path. Just say, okay, body, intuition, guide me. Where should I go? And wherever your body starts moving, don't question it, just go. You will be so surprised how cool and how crazy this is. This actually happened to me. I went for a walk in my neighborhood, and I was doing this intuition test and intuition kind of strengthening and building. And I was just walking and walking, and I got to one point and I said, okay, body, where should I go? Tell me where I should go. And it took me down a road, and I ended up finding one of my coffee tables in my home. It was beautiful. It's like this beautiful dark wood. Somebody had just left it like on the side. And I typically never go that way. Like, it's not a way that I would go. So I did this intuition test strengthening practice, and I was able to find something pretty cool. So pick one thing, whether it's going for a walk, or maybe if you're going to eat something. Let's say this morning you say, okay, body, tell me what you want. Do you want like oatmeal, or do you want a parfait cup or a bowl, or do you want an omelet? Give it an option, 2 options, and then let your body choose. Let your intuition guide you to pick what you're going to eat that day. That's how you're going to build and strengthen your intuition. That food example I got from one of my mentors that I watch here on YouTube. She's just so amazing. And I just love the way that she shows up in her energy. It's amazing. Okay, so yeah, ask for signs. This is my last one, my last tip that I'll give. Ask God for signs. And you can be as specific as possible, or you can be as vague as possible, but you want signs that are specific to you so you can recognize them when they're actually happening. And it could be in the form of like, maybe someone's having a conversation and you'll hear that one thing that you asked God for a sign for, or maybe you may be walking around at work or wherever and you'll see like a sign that you ask God for, so that you know that this is a sign from God. This is absolutely God telling me, yes, do the thing. For example, let's say you want to make a big purchase, or there's something you have to decide. You can say, God, I would really like some confirmation on this XYZ topic. Give me a sign and that sign will allow me to know that yes, I should move forward, or no, I shouldn't move forward. So whatever that may be for you. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this was helpful in you understanding how to actually hear God's voice and recognize when it's God's voice versus when it's not God's voice. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on your bell notification button so you can get updated whenever I post. Like the video, it would mean absolutely so much to me. And leave me a comment below if you have any questions at all, what you thought about this topic, or maybe a story of when you actually heard God's voice versus when you didn't, or versus when it wasn't God's voice. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!